on. There's been about roughly a month of the season. There's definitely been some highs. There's been some lows in the NBA, but we have the best of the best to break it down as always. So let's talk about the first month of the NBA season with the best crew around. David Bach, the host of Fresh Faces New Ideas. What's up, Bach? You're here today.
I am here today. I'm excited. I finished up my stream. I've always having softball. I haven't played in a while, but I am excited to talk about it.
Hey, I know you've been definitely looking at that infrastructure bill and that impact, so we can take a nice distraction off you from there. And don't forget to check out his Twitch, Fresh Faces New Ideas. And then we have Alex Ranniello for the first time in a goatee. What's going on, Alex? Nice to see you, looking good. Or I should say a beard. I apologize for that. You have a beard going on.
You're muted, bro.
And he's muted. Could you try that one more time, Alex?
Talk about a fresh face with the same ideas.
Wow.
Happy to be here, Matt. Happy to be here. Let's make it happen.
Definitely. And I don't have a mustache anymore for now. Rest in peace to that. But let's get to it. NBA, what a time it's been in the first month. And it's been really exciting and a lot of great games, a lot of headlines. People are fighting on the floor. Everything's back to normal with fans for a full season. So where do we start? Why don't we talk about who at one point was the biggest, most influential, and literally most famous basketball player on the planet, Zion Williamson, who on a very bad Pelican team has barely played, has been noticeably gaining a lot of weight, and well, on the brink of a contract year that he's in right now, people are wondering, this is a good time to evaluate where's Zion been in his first couple of years. This guy is getting bigger. Do we think he's a bust already or what? And do you even think, maybe he's James Hardening it? Maybe he's gaining weight to get traded. It is a contract year. Pelicans are pretty awful. Maybe he's just loving that Cajun food, as Bach said in our chat. So I'll throw the floor to you guys. What do you think about the new Zion right now?
He needs I don't know what they're doing with him for his weight, but they really need a nutritionist on their team because the before and after pictures are the 2019 to this year or whenever the first one is. It's incredible. He's put on 30 pounds.
Yeah.
This is a guy who you can't say he's a bust because he's been incredibly efficient while he's played. But he's missed significant chunk of time to start at least his first two seasons. The update I got is he's cleared for one-on-one drills, and they'll know more on the 24th. Okay. But this is a weird team. I mean, they have some interesting pieces. I don't really think he fits with Ingram. I think if they'd kept Lonzo, that would have been better. Right. Getting Valanciunas while they had him was good because Valanciunas can do the bruiser stuff and will give Zion some pick and roll stuff. And Valanciunas is shooting 67% from threes or some stupid number this year. But they're weird. They got some interesting guards, Alexander Walker, Kira Lewis, but it's just not a good team. I don't know. Even if he forces his way out, what are you gonna get for him? I don't know what his trade value is. Because he's been it's kind of similar to Embiid when Embiid first got drafted, where he kept getting hurt. Mm-hmm. We know when he plays, he's a good player. But what is the evidence that he takes? There's no real evidence right now that he takes care of himself.
Yeah, especially
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, especially in a very unwatchable Pelicans team, it's hard to. I mean, if he comes in to give them many wins, they've only have 2 wins so far, and I don't know. This is a very fascinating character study. You were saying, Alex?
Yeah, no, I mean, just to echo what Bach said. I mean, I think we can kind of almost definitively say that he's not holding out. I mean, that's kind of the common modern trend with the younger players, they're just holding out. It's all speculative, but he is cleared for one-on-ones. That's good contact. He's back on the court for that. But yeah, he has to get with a nutritionist, obviously. I think he'll do his due diligence with Willie Green. It's only second month coaching on the job. So I think he's going to give him a fair shake if I know anything about Zion and his character at this point. But, like you guys said, I mean, he's not a great fit with Ingram. They have some nice pieces. I do like Valanciunas. I like Josh Hart as a role piece. I like, Jackson Hayes, a nice, kind of young leaper kind of guy. And they have shooters, but it just comes down to the question of durability. And we just don't know until we can test them out for 82 games. And the thing is, that's kind of been my argument, since the draft. I was one of the very few people, I don't have it on record, unfortunately, but I swear by it that I was a big Ja Morant fan, and this is for that. I didn't think that either of them could play any better or worse. I think there were better upside potentials to both in different areas, with obviously like, the durability, but then the rebounding, the shooting and the assisting. But Ja's showing up and showing out, and he'll be in the playoffs when the Pelicans are not in the next, few years.
Coming into this season, people were thinking what, pre-weight gain, staying off the court, that if he would walk and maybe go to another team, especially one that needs a center. Despite this, do you still think that's a possibility for him? Do you think he'll stay loyal? Will he join his best friend RJ Barrett on the Knicks, even though they have their center position pretty settled right now? Or is he going to go join LeBron if this doesn't work out and they need to get younger? What do we think? You think Zion's staying in NOLA or what?
He's going to sign the contract. Like I can't see him walking, because we're talking about, so for him to force a trade is one thing. I don't know if they'll do that, because I think it's 5 years, right? They have to decline the fifth year for the fifth year is the player option.
Correct.
So he still has 2 more years under team contract. So unless he's going to pull Ben Simmons and he's going to sit for 2 years, in which case we've had 70 games of evidence that, like, I mean, he's clearly can play, but like,
right.
We have zero evidence that he can make it through an 82 game season. This is literally his first 82 game series. We have no evidence that like he can, prove that he's on a winning team. It's so, while tantalizing as it is to the image of Zion and this like the thought of him, there's no evidence that like he can do it. So I think he's going to get the bag, whatever he can get, because they're going to give him they'll give him whatever they gave him Embiid originally, with all the caveats, like you have to play 50 plus games, you have to do yada yada yada, and all be tied to his health. You have to not weigh 600 fucking pounds. When you said he's the biggest player, I think he's like within 5 pounds of it, right? I think Boban is the heaviest, and Zion's within like 5 pounds of him, but he's like 6 inches shorter.
He's a baby Shaq, man. It's unbelievable. I echo everything you said, Bach. And the thing too is, you only have as much trade value and much negotiating leverage if you're healthy. So, I mean, his brand and market appeal is only as good as he is healthy. That's the issue. And also too, you got to think about the way they structure the NBA contracts coming out of, college. You don't really get your big deal until after you sign the second contract. Up until after you sign your second contract, you don't have a lot of negotiating power. The players, the rookies that are on those first deals are usually pretty shoehorned into getting that second contract with the team that drafted them. So he doesn't have a whole lot of power at this point.
Yeah, I mean, like the only rookie I could think of who really, like in the modern area, was Porzingis. Like he was the only one I could think of that got traded for before signing like a second, and that was like a clear cut. We're gonna give this guy whatever he wants. Right. And he's the only he's right. Like the it's different when you're trading like for Ben Simmons or something where you have to match the massive contract. Like when you're talking about trading for Zion, you're either talking future picks or you're talking like a either taking on money, or you're talking about like a blue chip guy. You're talking like for right. Ja. You're talking about for like Cade. You're talking about for like Anthony Edwards. It has to be somebody on like a similar scale contract. Maybe if we're talking about like maybe if he's not happy next year, and we're talking about whoever gets the first pick, and we're talking Zion for I think Imani Bates is 2023 is projected, or because I don't think somebody's going to trade him for Chet Holmgren. They're going to trade him for Paolo Banchero, who's the Duke kid.
Yeah.
It's not conceivable that it's not inconceivable that he would get moved. It's just very unlikely.
Yeah, and again, who wants to take the risk on a player who hasn't shown his durability?
Who's his rep? Is he? He's not a clutch guy, is he?
No.
I can look that up right now. Zion Williamson.
I think Derek White just became a clutch guy. One of the Spurs guys did. Oh, Kelvin did. Kelvin Johnson just became a clutch guy. Oh, so fuck, he's going to the Lakers.
He's with CAA actually.
Okay.
So, in there, so I guess time will tell with another thing, and it's gonna be really interesting once we check back in next month to see if Zion's back, and we can check in on his progress until then, and if he can get that glory he once had. And speaking of players that we talk about all the time, we can literally give him the Ben Simmons moment of the month, but we got to talk about him again. Since we last chatted, he hasn't played. Still hasn't played. At this moment, he's on the team. He is not playing. He's claiming that mental health issues are the reason they're holding him back. Despite that, the Philadelphia 76ers have offered him options to help treat his mental health, and he's refusing it, leading to some people feeling skeptic if he's actually dealing with a mental health issue, or is he using it as an excuse? Now, I'll say it myself. I personally think he's using it as an excuse, and I will stand by those words. And if I'm wrong, I will apologize for him and take it back. But especially seeing legitimate players throughout other leagues, let's look at a Calvin Ridley, for example, who have legitimate mental health issues and stepping away from the game and taking as much help as he can. It just seems a little fishy that if he's really battling these demons, don't you think you would like to get help for it? Of course, everybody's different, but don't seem to be adding up. You have his agent Rich Paul now making excuses for him, and despite not being on the court, the Sixers are still striving in the East currently. Though they're in the 7th seed, it's still very early, and they're playing all right without him, but they could sure use him. So as we evaluate Ben Simmons once again, how are we feeling about this? Do we think this is going to prolong? Do we think eventually, cooler heads will prevail? Maybe if he is dealing with something, have the courage to go back on the court again? Or is this just another chapter in this whole Ben Simmons saga? And I haven't heard any updates of him trying to be moved elsewhere. What do you guys think of Ben Simmons today?
Well, I mean, all the trade guys are kind of gone. Like, they're not moving Bradley Beal right now, and Dame is not playing well. So nope. I don't know how much they're going to move for him. Look, the mental health thing, at the very least, if you're going to claim that, you should, and you're not going to take the team doctor, you should at least prove that you're going to some other type of doctor. You can't just say, if you're going to, I understand, people who do mental health issues, but if you're not actively trying to, especially let's be clear, this is not a regular person who is taking time away from he's not working for this. So in the very least, and he is more than enough money that he can hire literally any therapist for anything. He go to whatever doctor he wanted. They're clearly offering him a good one.
Right.
It's so if you're not going out of your way to do this, it lessens your credibility. I think they just fined him as well for not being with the team. And look, this team is going to struggle. Embiid is out. I think Tobias Harris is out as well. They're missing a whole bunch of guys.
Yes, both were out of their last game at the moment. So me saying they're striving really doesn't make any sense. But the fact that they are still staying afloat a little bit over 500.
Yeah, look, it's going to be Embiid. It's going to be the show, and they're going to have to figure out how to build around both of them. And more likely they're going to move Tobias than something else. There's a weird team. They need a little bit more scoring. They need a bigger guard too. Maxi's okay, but they need a real guard. The problem is there's multiple teams that need a legitimate point guard, and they're not available.
Yeah, right.
The Celtics need Chris Paul.
They need a lot of things. No, I mean, yeah, they're gonna go through a rough patch. I mean, my position has not changed on on Ben. I think he's been faking it from day one, and it's sad to say because there's a lot of people that do actually have mental health issues that need to be dealt with, in the privacy of their home with their agent and their family. I do wonder how long the charade's going to continue because Daryl Morey's kind of in the crosshairs of trying to avoid setting a new precedent with the league and these new players that if you are not taking the necessary steps to get help that you need and you're not joining the team and you decide that you still want to get paid, that's going to be an issue. And there's really no budging. And that's why I think he keeps referring back to the 4-year kind of situation. But when we just talk about it in basketball terms, I mean, again, they're 8-6. They're sitting at the 7th seed right now. Max has been playing great, but he's going to be out for some time. Curry's been pretty well, chipping in 16 a game. I like Drummond picking him up in the offseason to kind of take some of the load off of Embiid in case of any injury or anything like that. But, they're going to have a tough time. And Tobias has been playing pretty well, but I believe he's also out for the short term as well. So they're going to have to pivot. It's going to be, rough sledding for about 6 to 8 weeks. And, regardless when Embiid comes back, I mean, there's real teams in the East this year. And I don't think necessarily health and COVID protocols are the only issue with this team.
Yeah, it does seem like a mess. And then, when you hear some of these press conferences from Doc and he seems so distraught and lost, and it does seem like a mess, despite being, if the season ended today, they still would make the playoffs. It just seems you get a vibe that within this first month that the Sixers are just a mess right now and they can use anything. And this is one of the things Morey has to decide. Where are we going to move forward now? It's, it feels like a generation ago when we talked about trusting the process, and they keep getting farther and farther away from that. And eventually Morey has to decide, well, we're just going to have to break this up and trust a new process, or we're going to put this team back into shape. There was always, that adage that Christmas is the unofficial start of the NBA season, but yet if things keep, slipping away, you might be too late. Anything to that?
Well, yeah, but look, there's only realistically, I think at this point, there's only 3 realistic trading partners. It's the Kings, the Spurs, and the Wolves. I don't really see anyone else flipping because it's a weird, because if you're going to flip him, you're going to want to flip him for pieces that are going to help him beat, but you're also going to want to flip him to a team that's young enough. So the Wolves could go either way. They could go with Towns and then they could build around Simmons and Anthony Edwards, who's doing really well, or they could flip Edwards and Russell or something. So there's teams there. Basically they have to wait. I think if they find him enough, he's going to do something, because that's what happened last time. They find him $1 million and he showed up, because originally he was I'm not showing up to trade camp, fuck you. And then the day training camp opened, he was like, by the way, I'm here. I'm like, what the fuck do you mean you're here? So I think if they keep finding him for especially if he's not showing up to a doctor, or right. The way you do this, at least to save face, is say, look, we're offering you medical help. If you don't want to take it from us, just show us proof that you're trying to do better. Otherwise, we're going to fine you, because this is not the first time. Both DeRozan and Kevin Love both came out and said, hey, look, we were incredibly depressed. It took us a while to get through this. Mm-hmm. So I don't even know if Kevin Love is playing that much in Cleveland. So maybe he could help Ben Simmons.
But he also made it apparent in a public campaign that he was behind the movement. You know what I mean? There's players that really show up for it, or just do it to save face. And I think, like you said, Bach, until they start finding him more severely, he's not going to be pressed to come back anytime soon, because he's I'm just gonna have Rich Paul be my mouthpiece, and that's it.
Yeah.
And look, honestly, another thing is there's a sneaky good reason for them to kind of tank this year. Let's say Embiid is hurt a little bit longer, and you want to say, you know what, maybe he's dealing with something. Maybe, if we're looking at January and they're still, hovering around that 8, 9, 10 seed spot, shut Embiid down. Maybe you because look, if you go and you tank and you get, one of these top guys who fit better with Embiid,
right.
Having Simmons doesn't mean as much if you can kind of replace him with one of these guards, or sure. I haven't really looked into enough of this draft. But maybe give your guys a little time, let some of your younger guys go, let Maxey grow, maybe you unearth like a Kendrick Nunn or some other random, or maybe you kind of sell off some pieces.
Yeah.
Like I think there's like a legit stealth tank issue, because there's definitely going to be teams that you can kind of like fix the roster a little bit if you're tanking.
Right.
Like you could sort some things, because there's always desperate teams. You imagine if Zion comes back, they're going to be desperate to make the playoffs. The Timberwolves are probably going to be in a similar position. I think if you're getting close to the deadline and the Timberwolves are kind of sort of in the mix, you could probably get like a lot for that.
Yeah, and I think there's something to, teams kind of strategizing, being honest with themselves and strategizing during a gap year where they're saying, hey, the season's not going where we thought it would, all things considered, we've put our best foot forward. And I'm not saying this is the right time either, because we're only about a quarter into the season, if that, but there is something to be said for capitalizing on a gap year, because Golden State did it. They re-upped that thing when Kevin Durant was gone, and they had a lot of new guys in and out of the roster, and they weren't winning with the new guys anyway. And Steph was, hurt, and Klay was perpetually hurt back-to-back years. And they just kind of sat in limbo, and they kind of let this thing grow. And now they're the number one seed. So I think there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, you do what Toronto did last year, where their whole team, because look, they're having some COVID issues. You're playing in a weird environment, and you end up with arguably the rookie of the year right now.
Scotty Barnes.
So there's look, if Scotty Barnes wasn't as good as he was, that Toronto was a stealth piece for him. I think Siakam gets traded this year, because I think they're OG and Scotty Barnes are young enough that you could like build around them.
Yeah,
and I think you could get like, especially if you trade Siakam to like Golden State for like Kuminga or Modi, like that would be a good trade for them, because I'm all in on Scotty Barnes. That kid is going to be so fucking good.
And I believe in Masai Ujiri on being able to construct a roster in short time too. He's already proved to do it. Yeah,
he'd be the one to trust it. And exciting times for the team up in the North. Now, why don't we talk about the Eastern Conference? We'll talk about some of the big headlines here. Here's one of the most fascinating things to talk about when we're talking about the best team in the East. As of this moment, the best team in the East is not the Bucks. It's not the Sixers. It's not the Nets. Please forgive me. I don't think anybody saw this coming. With a brand new coach, with so many huge acquisitions in the offseason, like Spencer Dinwiddie, Montrezl Harrell, Kyle Kuzma, and Bradley Beal waiting for this team to come to him. The best team in the East right now is the Washington Wizards. Who would have thought? Forgive me. I did not see this coming. Please tell me if you guys saw this coming. Is this a fluke? Is this legit? How do we feel about the Washington Wizards at this moment being a contender in the East? Or is this just pre-Christmas? You just think this is pre-Christmas and they're just
like pre-Christmas. This is actually like they actually did a story on the Ringer about this, like how like some teams overachieve, especially the first, like when you talk about December being the first like official start of the season, the first like month or two are super weird. Like teams are still trying to, unless you're like a consistent team that like has been together, like the Spurs were always good because they were basically the same team in and out and they had their system. So like part of the reason that the Wizards are in one is everybody in Milwaukee except for Giannis is hurt or has COVID. Philadelphia's we've already talked about. Brooklyn had to basically play with Durant and then Harden on like half a leg at a beer gut. Like all the other teams that were better than them were just simply like hurt or sick or something. And so they had like a structure that like they could figure out a structure for this team. They changed one ball. They made a free flowing thing. It's not like they got nothing for Westbrook. Like they got serviceable players. The Dinwiddie was basically out for like Kuzma. I mean, you get all he asked in Kuzma is to grab rebounds and shoot the ball and play some defense. I mean, he was kind of doing that anyway.
Yeah.
It's not stretching it. And Harrell is a better fit here anyway. Their biggest issue is apparently they've wasted like two picks, which I'm really bad about because I wanted Denny in San Antonio. But like they're, it's a fluke now. I put them in the same tier as I put the Hornets and the Celtics and the like the Knicks that like they're probably going to make the playoffs, but if they make it through the first round, it's mostly because they're playing one of those similar, like that 4-5 team. They're not contenders. It's mostly everyone else is kind of like dealing with other shit. Like and Miami came back down to earth from where they started.
Okay, I respect that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we opened up the preseason picks kind of with the shared understanding that the Western Conference was a little more predictable 1 through 8, and that the East was a little vulnerable at the very top just because COVID was an awkward year, and the year after that was the same, following suit. So we didn't really know what we were getting. But man, if this doesn't make Westbrook look bad, I mean, everywhere he's left, teams have flourished. And like you said, Bach, they got nice talent, nice pieces coming back to Washington, and they've been able to kind of show out. I mean, Kuzma's been balling. Montrezl Harrell's been 19-9, 19-8. Dinwiddie's a really nice piece, a guy who can get his own bucket most of the time. And KCP is just a 3-and-D guy all around. And, then you got Bertans coming off the bench. You got the kid from Gonzaga, Kispert, I think.
Yeah, the 15th
and then
pick.
Hatsumura, and I think in his second or third year. So you got bodies everywhere. You got a coach, Weston Sells Jr., who's proven at the top league. He can relate to players. And so I think, like you said, Bach, I mean, with all that, all that being said, I think they're going to kind of come back down to earth, within the next couple months of the season. I think they'll probably be, somewhere between 3-7, 3-8. We won't really know until the rest of the season plays out, but they've been off to a great start, and you got to love the way that their team is constructed and how they're very unselfish with the basketball.
And they're a team that can make a move. Like, I'm pretty sure they have their picks. They still got at least 3 lottery guys. They have Denny, they have Rui, they have I think it's Troy Brown Jr. is still on that team. He's still kind of like, they have the pieces where you could kind of like swing for a fence. If, let's say Karl Anthony Towns wants out, you want to, Washington could, maybe it's not the most enticing package, but you got some young guys that could grow with Anthony Edwards and that would kind of fit around him. So they could, like, if not this year, maybe next year, there'd be a more interesting team to watch in the future. But they're overachieving now. It's the same way that like a couple years ago, there would be like Orlando was like 5-0 or some shit. It's mostly due to
things happen early in the season, right?
Yeah,
but it's funny. Yeah, it's funny how the narrative has changed around Bradley Beal too, because we always talk about how him being the top blue chip kind of trade value on the open market. But if you're Washington, it's like, okay, this is what we could be without, Westbrook hamstringing this roster. Are we all in on Bradley Beal for the future because we don't want to waste the rest of his prime, or do we want to part ways and get as much value as we can with him? Because if you're off to this hot start, and he seems to be the guy, I mean, he's just been like humming. I mean, there's a good argument to be said to put all the chips to the table and get him a nice co-star.
Or at least do it next year, because this would be showing him that you have a year's stability, and it's a much easier sell this year than it was like last year, or because look, they turned the John Wall contract into like 4 or 5 serviceable players, and if Dinwiddie didn't tear his ACL net last year, I mean, that's probably win the title.
Yeah, and he would probably stay as a net as well. He was a valuable piece right before.
Because he could do like what 40% of 60% of what Kyrie does.
Yeah,
you're gonna get like he would be better than whatever 10% of James Harden they had. So it wasn't like I think he got lost a little.
Yep,
definitely. I mean, it was him and D'Angelo Russell before the Kyrie and KD years began, and I guess he proves that he's one serviceable role player in this league, and well, maybe a fluke for now, but it's fun to see what the Wizards have been pulling off. And speaking of the Nets, who you just mentioned, without Kyrie, the Nets seem to have not missed a beat. They're third in the East at this moment
right now.
Yeah. Who are they playing? Are they playing the Wizards?
They're playing Golden State.
Okay, playing Golden State. So big game.
I've missed most of their games. I was watching one of their games when they were playing Oklahoma City. I didn't realize how ridiculous Durant was this season.
Oh, yeah.
Like 29 points on 59% shooting. Like, we're not talking like the people who shoot 59% from the field are like Shaq and Mitchell Robinson and DeAndre Jordan, guys who just dunk it the whole time. It's not the number one option on your team who's creating and pulling up for threes like this. It's like, we're spoiled by having like a lot of generational talents that the guys get lost, but he's so fucking good. Like,
yeah,
it's so effortless because he's just like he's the built in a lab. Like
especially for his tall, lanky look, and he's like top 15 NBA players of all time. It hasn't missed a beat, and I do think whether it's motivation for not having Kyrie and it's just him and Harden to make up for lost time, and with the East being competitive, they definitely have to keep afloat. And Eric Adams, the new mayor-elect of New York City, said that he will, quote, reevaluate the mask mandate, whatever that means. Could this mean that they lift the ban, or at least the mask mandate?
If they're doing mask mandate, that's not going to give Kyrie back. They would have to change vaccination status, and that's not going to work, especially as we head into a winter spike. So like, look, the thing with KD is like, even then, like, it's not that he's like trying to prove anything, because he's malleable. Like, he knows that at any point during a game, he's like, fuck it, I can go get 10 points in 2 minutes. And he's changing based on who he's in. Like, when Harden sits, he'll take more of a back seat. When Harden's playing, and then he turns it on with the bench guys. So it's not like it's just his, like, this is what we really would have seen if he didn't get hurt. Like, this is what they would have been last year if he didn't, or 2 years ago if he didn't get hurt in Golden State. Like, this is the peak of his powers. He's like there's no waste. Like, he's like 18th in shots per game, like, across the league. He's like, there's no motion wasted. Like, it's just absurd how good he is, because he can do it all.
He can, and he's been nothing but that. And I mean, what a ride that they have all been experiencing. Alex, you have anything to add to the Nets?
Nah, honestly, no. I agree with everything he just said. Like, verbatim. I mean, that's the thing is, KD's just, he's too tall. He's a matchup nightmare. He's too tall for the bigs in the paint. He's too quick for the bigs in the paint, and he's too tall for perimeter defenders. So he's got an unstoppable shot.
3 guys who could maybe check him. It's like Giannis, AD, and I assume one of the Raptor weights could like potentially check him. And other than that, that's like it. Like, everybody else, you're holding it
physical. Otherwise, you got to get physical, and the rules have changed now where you really can't touch shooters, in the way they used to, be able to check players.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. So they changed how the drawing fouls rules were. So that's hurt guys like Trey. It's hurt guys like James Harden. It's hurt, like, shooting across the league is down, except for KD. Like, everyone else is suffering except for he's just like
telling everything. Yeah,
it's like, I'm still putting the ball in the basket, so I don't care.
I think, like, with Kyrie being out, I think he's hyper motivated to just put this team on his back. I mean, he's always been a hyper efficient guy, but like you said, the 18th in shot selection, I mean, that's crazy with the numbers he's putting up.
Oh yeah, we're definitely. I would like to think that he will keep this momentum up when we talk about all of this in the spring and seeing how far the team goes. If the Wizards go down, they're probably the team going up with that. And Brooklyn staying legitimate. And talk about the other New York team, and the New York Knicks, a team that started off very hot, then went cold, now so again. And I think it's fair to say, of course I'm excited as the huge Knicks fan I am. We're so far so good. I'm happy, or I should say, I'm content. I'm content where we're at this moment. Though it seems Kemba's really showing his age. He's really having a hard time keeping up with these younger point guards. Though D-Rose has been holding it down in the minutes he's been getting. Julius Randle. Some days you feel like top 10 NBA player right now, and then other days you feel like, man, this guy is what he was in the Atlanta series. But RJ Barrett's been looking good, stepping up. Evan Fournier okay signing. You know, the only other real bright spot you have confidence is Emmanuel Quickly. He's looking pretty good. I really hope that young kid puts on some weight, but he could be a legitimate threat in this league, even as a role player. Oh, still very young. I think he's only 19. The Knicks. For me, as a Knicks fan, I'm content. I'm excited. How do you guys think things will play out with the Knicks right now and after their first month?
Well, I mean, you got to be encouraged with what you see. I think Randall's, kind of what we expected, 2010 guy for the year. I think that there's a lot of little tweaks that they can work out with this rotation between the bench because, I mean, I think it's pretty well recognized at this point early on. They have the best bench in the league in terms of production. I mean, they're right up towards the top. I think tightening that rotation, maybe changing up some of the schemes to, manage guys' minutes with Thibodeau would be great. But, Fournier and Kemba coming over in the offseason has helped a lot. And I think it's been able to kind of stabilize that second rotation, that second unit. And I think that Kemba taking some of the ball handling dependency for Randall and kind of all that weight and pressure of, orchestrating the offense, unfortunately played itself out last year in the playoffs. And I think that they can avoid that if they head down into the first round this year in the playoffs. So
let's get it. You think this team is advancing any way forward, Bach?
I think this is a more accurate representation of where the team was last year.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of what we're seeing more is a regression to the means. A lot of what happened last year, and I've been very vocal about this to the dismay of many Knicks fans, is one, Julius Randle kind of overachieved last year. Like the numbers he put up were not historic to anything else he had done at any point during his career prior to this. The other thing was the shots of their opponents, like for the whole season, were below league average from 3-point range. And that made like a massive difference. And I think they're probably stabilized a little more. Look, I think this is like a team you can grow with. You still got some, RJ's going to get better. Obi's getting some minutes now. So you're kind of playing him with Randall. Randall's still only what, like 26, 27.
Randall's 27.
26.
And 26. Mitchell Robinson will eventually stop fouling the shit out of everybody. But look, the issue is your starters are, the starters are like minus 14 as a group. The fact that your bench is plus 20 is like the thing that's keeping, which to be fair is not is not like an entirely bad thing. For at least the last couple of years, the Spurs have almost been kept entirely afloat by their bench. So, and your starting lineup fit together way better than ours did. So I mean, it's young. A lot of stuff will come back together. You have hope. I mean, like you said, you could pull off a trade. I don't think you're getting Zion. I don't know who you would trade for, but you have the ability. Like you have, unfortunately, you got the Worldwide West guys or whoever's running your team. You got them a year too late because taking Kevin Knox over Michael Porter Jr. was an absolute was a travesty when it happened, and it remains a travesty now.
Biggest joke ever. I mean, sometimes you forget he's literally the 15th man on the roster at this point. What a shame. And
since Porzingis, you fucked up every pick essentially, other than like Barrett and that draft. Like every pick in between was a waste.
Yeah, and the pick for Quickly has been the better Kentucky pick for sure. But you're right. It's been a mess, but we are slowly cleaning it up. And another thing I hope we can clean up is our defense. Our defense was on point last season. Now we in our last game yesterday against Indiana, we let them under 100 points, but that's definitely has to be improved and what was a huge highlight of the team last year. But
the Indiana team is not very good. I think they're going to blow it up. Honestly, I think if they blow it up, Malcolm Brogdon's going to get a lot of looks.
Because them players revert to.
Yeah, Brogdon's been balling. They're just not winning.
Or TJ McCollum. I think the guys that they if they blow this up, they build around Sabonis. And I mean, their rookie is really good. But he's like 27. but between I think you build around Sabonis and LeVert, but I don't know. Like realistically, the fact that you have at least an all-star and they have what's his face? They have Rick Carlson. They'll be fine in the long run, but they're this is a weird team that just kind of underachieve. You know what I think it might be? I don't think LeVert is as good as we give him credit for.
Mm-hmm.
Like he has the ability, but he just hasn't done it. Like he had that 50-point triple double with the Nets, and then they traded him. So, which he's the the perfect three man. Like if he's your third best player, you're probably fine. But I think he's a little overtaxed in where he is. He's kind of like a poor man's Shea, but they don't play the same positions. Like, you know what I mean? He's he's not a great ball handler. He's not a great shooter, but he can kind of do he can, you know what he is? He's the new age Jeff Green.
Mm-hmm. And always making up for lost time, and will hit those shots when you need it and be clutch when you need it and get the praise when you need it. But we know what we're playing with. And talking about teams that really dropped the ball so far, the Boston Celtics right now at 7-7. Sometimes it's really hard basketball to watch with so many turnovers, with we don't see a resurgence here with Jason Tatum not being who he is, or Jaylen Brown. It's been quite a pondering moment for the Celtics. How do we feel about them? Do you think they're as bad as they come off to be, or will they switch it up?
They need a point guard, like a legitimate point guard. That would make so much of their issues go away. Because right now, Marcus Smart is kind of right. It's Jalen and Jason trying to just do everything, but that's not really their game. And the problem is who else is going to do it? Marcus Smart is not bringing the ball up. He's not. They need a table. They honestly need Malcolm Brogdon. That would just solve a lot of issues for that roster, because they need somebody. It will make Tatum more efficient. It'll make Brown more efficient. It will help get the young guys in it. But Schroeder's not the answer. You're not going to play Josh Richardson. Josh Richardson still has the same issues that he's had basically since he left Miami. Peyton Pritchard's not a starting point guard. Their issue is really they need a stabilizing guard to set because they've never Jason and Jalen have never played with the stabilizing guard. They played with Kyrie, they played with Kemba, and now they played with Schroeder. They never had that table setting. If they had LaMelo, think how much better this team would be. Or if they had a legit, that's their issue, is they're kind of overcast, and their roster is kind of weird. They had all these picks. The real issue is they had a bajillion picks. They never could do anything with them, so they had to just keep stockpiling players. And now they don't know. Now they got this weird team because they hit a whole couple home runs with Jalen and Jason, and now they got Romeo Langford and Brayton Pritchards and I don't even know who else they have on this roster anymore. I love Time Lord. Yeah, great name, but
yeah. Yeah, no, I mean it's a weird duality between watching Tatum and Brown, take all the reps on this team. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. They need a ball handler. They need a selfless guy. They needed what Kemba could have been last year if he just stayed healthy and had a little more stature to him. But he's just too small, and he's not the kind of player you're going to run in screen and rolls like you'd like to. He's more of a pick and pop guy. So, long story short, they need a ball handler. I mean, they're between the two of them, they're putting the numbers up. I mean, on the year, Tatum's 23-8, Brown's 25-6. They have decent player efficiency rating, but they only do two things well, which is play the wing, shoot at a high efficiency rating, and then rebound the ball with Al Horford and Williams. And I think that they need a better, diverse planogram set for how they're going to attack, these teams in the East, because they only do two things really well. And it's a little redundant having those two guys really taking all the reps on offense. I mean, I was a little skeptical. I mean, I wasn't skeptical because I think Udoka can coach, but, those are big shoes to fill when Brad Stevens goes upstairs. And I think that having hit, we're going to have to see how this team looks by January, February. It could be one of those things where they may have to blow this thing up and move either Brown or Tatum.
I think it's too early for that. I also don't think I would blow them up yet. I mean, you have two, they're essentially under 20. I think maybe Brown is 26, but they're both
No, I mean they're.
You want those, like you want those two type of wings. I think it's much easier to build around them than it is to go find the players that fit. Like to go find another Brown, you have to hope you get another Brown. Like you have him now, it's easier for you to figure out how to like fit with them.
But my thing is, what good does it do you if you're a team that has just maximized the same exact needs at the same positions? That's the thing is, I feel like those two guys interchangeably do a lot of the same things well, and I don't think they're going to get equitable value if they keep both of them on the roster.
I understand that, but like a lot of the league now is switchability. Like a lot of what's happening in Toronto is also OG and Scotty Barnes overlap a lot. It's like, so having guys who can do similar things is important, especially on the wings, where you need to be able to deal with, maybe a bigger wing in dealing with Brooklyn or not having because it gives you the ability to stay big. I think not giving this a chance with at least like a legitimate table setting guard, whether like you don't need like a Malcolm Brogdon type. You just need somebody, Ricky Rubio. If they get Ricky Rubio, I can't imagine it would be very difficult to with Colin Sexton out. It might be a little harder, but like trading for Rubio shouldn't be like that would fix a lot of their issues. He's not going to hurt them defensively. I mean, it'll hurt them a little bit spacey, but if he's running pick and rolls with the other guys spotting up, it'll give you some rope. So there's, I think you need to give it at least a year with it being like their team, because it's not like they haven't been successful. They've been to multiple Eastern Conference Finals.
Right.
You have something here. It's just, okay, well, we've tried. It's just like, to me, it doesn't make sense that they've constantly tried the same type of guard. And I mean, I get it. You can get Dennis Schroeder for like $10. You give it a shot, but it's not like working. And I think you're finding that like actual point guard. I think, honestly, they might be able to get Dragic too. I think Dragic might be another guy who might be, because apparently they have a 6'7" guy backing up Fred VanVleet in Toronto anyway. So they don't Dragic, like there's guys. I think it's too early to say, oh, this team can't work together.
Now let me ask you guys this, because I'm gonna plead ignorance if I don't know any better. But when Brad Stevens went to the front office, was that Boston telling the rest of the league that we're different, we're going to run things different now? Because they've been playing captain conservation since they got those draft picks from Brooklyn, and they've been hitting the proverbial wall every year at the top of the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, at what point, and this goes back to my point about having, too much of the same skill set, the same talent on your roster, at what point do you look at the two guys and say, we're not going anywhere unless we shake things up and make a trade for equitable value? Because we've seen how talented these two guys are, and we're not saying that we can't win at a high level as constructed, but in order to get over the hump, we need to fill out this roster with the best possible surrounding pieces.
Yeah. Okay, then with that argument, if you're going to blow it up, what are you looking for? Like, what are you trading? I assume you're not trading Tatum, right?
No, I would trade Brown.
Right, you're trading Brown.
Right.
So this is kind of similar to the Simmons and the Zion thing. What value are you getting for moving him? You're not moving somebody like this just for the sake of moving him. Right. You have to look for. So the question is, what are you looking to trade for? That's why it kind of made sense for them to be in the in the Simmons discussions, because that's at least a piece. But like, who are you looking at to move Brown? That would be the difference to push you at a different level. Feels like what? Dame? You're not getting Dame. You're not getting.
I would definitely try to make a deal with Atlanta if you can. They have a really nice pieces to fill out the roster, and they're looking for a second co-star with Trey.
So you're saying they should blow it up and then take what, like Cam Reddish and DeAndre Hunter,
and try to get.
I mean, if you're taking DeAndre Hunter, because Jaylen Brown is what you hope DeAndre Hunter turns into.
Of course, no, but at a certain point, I mean, you need three solid guys, not just one phenomenal player.
Right. No, I agree with you, but I think they already have two solid guys already. I think it's easier to find the third guy, and it doesn't even need to be like that spectacular guy. The rest of the roster more or less would make sense if they had like a legitimate point guard.
But the thing, Bach, and I agree with you. I think they've been trying to look for the third guy for 2-3 years now, and they've just completely struck out, whether it's been injury or just swing and misses.
Yeah, but this is the first season that they've had, the young guys being the young guys, like where they've had the ability to like it be this team. Because originally it was that big four, and then Gordon Hayward's ankle got fucked up, and then there was they're weird teams with Kyrie. And then they like last year could have done it, but the last 2 years, but they didn't have Kemba, or the Kemba was an issue. And then there was the bubble season. So I think it's still I think it's too early. I think, if we're talking, if they miss the playoffs, then you got a problem. But if they're like a 4-5 team, or if they're in the play-in game, I think that just tells you that you have more tweaks to do than you blow it up.
Yeah, I don't mean blow it up like that either. I just mean make a drastic move, like moving Brown.
Right. But I mean, realistic. So at this point, if you're going to make a drastic move, your movable pieces are essentially Marcus Smart.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the franchise really has underachieved. It's still crazy for so much roster movement and so much hype, and so many people thinking this team had a championship within them. They haven't been to the final since 2010. And I think making that more drastic move to see if there's anything left would have to be the correct position. But again, we're talking before Thanksgiving NBA. And like you said, Bach, I think it's a matter of time to see where things lie before the trade deadline in February, March, one of those months. Yeah. But another team, and probably the last thing from the East before we switch to the West, that has been on quite the hot start. I was listening to our preview podcast, and Bach, you said this team was the winners in the offseason. The Chicago Bulls are second in the East at 10-4 right now, with DeMar DeRozan looking like a brand new player. Zach LaVine making his push to be a legit star. Vujovic, I mean, just boards after boards after boards. And of course, getting Lonzo adding on to this very exciting team with other players like Alex Caruso and Tony Bradley, and to name a few. The Chicago Bulls. Do we think this is more legit than the Wizards' hot start?
Yeah.
Please add on.
Yeah, I think they are. Look, they're certainly going to have problems in the playoffs. Losing Patrick Williams is like a big blow, because they don't really have an answer to the Giannis's, the KD types without him. But this is a much improved team. They're getting Lonzo to like, I keep private, but like there's certain guards who like settle things down, and the improvement he's made is drastic. Caruso's just one of those guys that like, you overpay them. Like once you have them, you have to overpay to keep them. But like it works on the Lakers losing Caruso to get Westbrook is like a huge detriment, because like the last 3 years, the number one pairing that LeBron has had for a teammate is Caruso. It's not AD. It's not any of the other young guys from there. It was him, because he's just a smart, hard-nosed player. Like there's a reason he's a cult guy, and it's not like just because he was a Laker. This is not a Robert Sacre thing. It's a it's like he's a legit, like he's the guy you want to be either like the first guy off the bench, or like he's the glue guy. Every team needs a Caruso, and the dude just fits for this team. I think DeRozan, kind of fits as well in his own little. And he said it. I think he said it today that he was like, "Yeah, I was gonna go to LA before they."
Yeah, he did say that today. And look what
I think they'd rather have him than Westbrook. They had a good offseason. I think losing Patrick Williams certainly hurts them, but they certainly are keeping Zach LaVine now.
Right.
Unless, I mean, there's a team like if Patrick Williams is healthy, maybe you flip Kobe White, Patrick Williams, some picks and stuff for Jaylen Brown. But, now I think he tore his ACL or something, right?
Patrick Beverly.
No, Patrick Williams.
Sorry, Patrick Williams. Let me see his injury real quick. He injured his wrist, and I still think they're still evaluating how long exactly he'd be out for.
I thought he was out for this season.
You're probably right. I'm just finding the official word, but as I look into that, Yeah. Yep, you're right. It says right here, wrist surgery expected to miss rest of the regular season. So big blow there, but they are still winning despite that. So anything else to add you were saying? But yes, he is injured for the rest of the year.
No, they're surprised. We're going to talk about the Hornets real quick, right?
Yes, we'll hit that right after. And then we'll go from the West there. But Alex, do you have anything with the Bulls back to their glory or what?
I mean, back to the glory, maybe we'll see. I think they've gone off to a hot start, and I think they are the real deal for the remainder of the season because they're constructed the right way. They win with hard-nosed defense in the perimeter, and they play big boy ball when Vucevic is healthy. So I think they're going to be around, by the end of the season, into the playoffs. I still think they're going to kind of come back down to earth the way we think the Wizards are. I think they'll be between that, 3 to 8 range, but they've been the surprise of the league so far, and they'll be around at the end.
They're definitely the best of the second level. Like the KDs, the Bucks and the Nets are still the two best teams in the conference. But like right below them, it's like Atlanta and Chicago.
Yeah, because look at you got Levine, Lonzo, and Caruso. Those are three of the best backcourt defenders in the entire league.
Yeah, their issue is just going to be wings. They don't have an answer for people on the wings, and I think honestly, when they traded Thaddeus Young, they kind of hurt them. I'm still waiting for Thaddeus Young to get traded for Jalen Smith because we don't have a fucking big guy because goddamn Podol got COVID or whatever happened to him.
Well, we definitely hope for that he gets back and getting forever. Now, the last team we'll talk about with the Charlotte Hornets. Very interesting. They did have an ugly losing streak to start this season. I mean, there's one game. They lost 127-59.
That was preseason. That game was so awful. I was watching that game. Was so bad. That was like the worst basketball. They scored like 20 points in the second half. It was like the worst thing I ever saw.
Well, good thing that's a preseason game. But anyways, this team here with Miles Bridges maybe holding his own, LaMelo Ball taking the next step in his career, wait to see what Gordon Hayward could do, and of course Terry Rozier maybe trying to justify his bad start to his career as well. But the Charlotte Hornets, how are we feeling about this team? Hot start in October, cool off a little bit, but they are on a 3-game winning streak at the moment. How do you feel about these Hornets?
I hate this team. This team makes me so mad. I keep thinking I keep thinking LaMelo is going to be worse than he is. Like when he was drafted, like every statistic told you that he was like a bad defender and he wasn't going to be like he wasn't going to be able to shoot and all this stuff. And then he turns out he could. And then like this year, he's still doing the same type of shit, except Miles Bridges is way better. Who I really like. I like Miles Bridges a lot.
Yeah, he's turning into a real good ball player.
Like he's probably going to come down to earth. He's averaging like 27 a game. He's not going to be averaging that much like for the rest of the season, but he could be. I love their draft. They had between Boat Knight and Kai Jones. They had a good draft as well. But like this is a good young team. This is kind of how you build correctly. So they got some. They certainly need a better center. Like
a couple years away from real dominance.
They're gonna have to open up the bag for Bridges. They're gonna have to open up the bag for LaMelo. But other than that, you have they're gonna be a destination in the East at this point. Like guys are gonna start looking at because they would have made the playoffs last. They were like the 4 seed at one point last year, and then LaMelo missed like 90% of the season after that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's no reason to think that they're not going to be a destination. Like, look, think about it. Like a couple years ago, their best signing was Al Jefferson. Like he was their like 3rd best player in franchise history.
It's been a long time since those good old days. Do we feel this is Ranniello, do we feel this Hornets team is an example of a team to really, really look out for? And they're starting to plant the seeds to maybe be in a big name themselves.
Yeah, they'll definitely be a destination for years to come. I mean, they're just young. They're learning how to win, and that's really the biggest thing. I mean, they lost 4 or 5 recently on their slide, but they've started off hot to start the year. And you always look for teams to have good balance, both offensively and defensively. I mean, you're getting good production from Bridges and Hayward. and Rozier and LaMelo are a really nice complement in the backcourt. So yeah, you're gonna have to open up and pay money, down the road in a couple of years, but you can restructure a lot of the other contracts outside of LaMelo and Bridges. So I think that the sky's the limit with them as long as they continue to progress and learn how to win throughout the season. I think they'll be fighting, between the 4 and 8 seeds by the end of the year.
Okay. So let's talk about the West. Let's start off with Alex's team, the Lakers. Oh man, people leave your team and really make the most of themselves. We have LeBron. I don't know. I don't want to question someone's injury, but again, it's other fishy things in this world. He's supposed to come back on Friday. This team is just a game above 500 right now. Panicking yet, Alex? Are people old guy jokes justifying themselves or what?
I've learned the hard way that you don't panic until LeBron comes back. No, I mean, there's good things and bad things to take from the experiment that this roster has shown so far. I mean, for one, AD has been a phenomenal leader. He's talked about a turnaround in 1 year from injury and coming back from injury to this year. I mean, he's been 24 and 10. The 2.1 blocks up until this point has been phenomenal. It just shows he's a dominant force inside. He's definitely been the enforcer. Here's the thing with Westbrook, and it's never going to go away. He's averaging 19, 8, and 8, but it's the turnovers, man. I mean, it's just poor judgment after poor
Number
judgment.
one.
If he just reduced the turnovers, he would be able to alleviate the weight of LeBron's workload throughout the rest of the season. That's the only reason they brought him this year was, in addition to making a long playoff push into a championship, they brought him to take 20, 30 games off of LeBron's plate. And the more you continue to turn the ball over, the more you put the team in harm's way to lose. And that's what he's been doing. And that's the issue. The only issue I have with this team. I mean, Melo's been godsend. He's been balling out.
How about that?
I really like the late draft pick they had, Austin Reeves out of Oklahoma. I don't think anybody saw him coming besides the March Madness tournament, but he's been unbelievable playing defense on both sides of the ball for that matter. And then, I mean, you got guys like Malik Monk playing a big game here and there, but the point is, I think that they have the talent, the bodies to be back in the finals by the summertime next year. But Westbrook's got to start taking care of the ball and just understanding to live for another play and stop putting the team in harm's way.
Well, I mean, there's other things too. THT came back last night. So he can definitely give you another ball handler because he's a bigger dude. And the other thing with Westbrook is, like, he starts slow. Like, every season he starts poorly. In the second half, he turns it on. And he's a much better player. And also, this is like he's never really played in this situation where there's like truly another dominant ball handler. Like, the closest you can say to that would be when, like, right when they made the finals of Oklahoma City, but he was the point guard. Like when you're playing on LeBron's team, it's LeBron's. This is not like, I still think I'm better than KD because I'm 22. It's my team. It's LeBron's team. So he's still trying to figure that out. They are light on shooting. They're missing a bunch of guys. I don't think Wayne Ellington's back. They're still missing Trevor Ariza. Like, this is a work in progress. Yeah, they're old, but there's no reason to count them out totally. They still have LeBron. They still have AD. They'll between LeBron and Frank Vogel, they'll have enough intelligence to figure out how to maximize Westbrook. Because LeBron is hyping up Westbrook all the time to try to figure out how to get him to get it.
Yes, I think it's fair to say that the secret to their success is Westbrook's performance at this point. And as you said, time will tell. And, as a common theme with this podcast, it isn't Thanksgiving yet. While we're starting to see the seeds getting planted, it's going to be interesting to see how these teams grow into their own. And I think the Lakers are one of the most popular examples of that moving forward. And with that, with the seeds and switching, as everybody got to talk about their team. Bach, of course, it's your turn with the 4-9 Spurs. How you feeling about them? Is Popovich gonna just say, "Fuck it, I'm retiring"? Finally, will this be the changing moment? or are they just gonna go run into it and be legit?
No, I think they're not gonna be legit. Like we have actual, like we're not going to be bad. Like we're not gonna be out of game. Like there'll be games we lose just because we can't shoot, but they're gonna fight hard. There's gonna we're gonna fight against like the Lakers. We're gonna fight against the teams that are clearly better than us. But DeJounte Murray's looking really good. I'm impressed with Kevin, with Kelvin. Devin Vassal's playing very, very well. I'm still mad about the Primo pick. I wish it'd been somebody else. Like we certainly could use Sengun or Kai Jones right now. But we got some good young guys. We'll be bad. Hopefully we're bad enough to get one of those big dudes. Hopefully we don't end up with that fucking center from Memphis. That would just not be another pick that we needed. But like, no, we're an interesting team where, this is the first time in a while for rebuilding, but where I'm happy. I do think that this would realistically be one of the destinations for Ben Simmons. We do like Bryn Forbes and Derek White and like Lonnie for Ben Simmons and like a pick. Because I think he would fit a lot. A lot of our issues is we don't really have a wing. Like we're top and bottom heavy in the sense that like we don't have bigs, but it's like Portal has been really good. Like his passing is like, I'm not saying he's Jokic, but he could be prime Joakim Noah.
As long as he doesn't get his brothers on his enemies too, why not? But
yeah. Actually, I do have a lot of stats. Like the ringer piece on the numbers that Jokic is putting up is like fucking mind blowing. The things that he is. So just for record, just reading this paragraph, Jokic's basic counting stats are impressive enough. He's on pace to become the only fifth player to average 20, 10, and 5 more than just once, joining Giannis, Oscar Robinson, Wilt, and peak Unleashed Westbrook post KD. The advanced numbers are jaw-dropping. He leads the NBA in value over replacement player, box plus minus, win shares per 48, player efficiency rating, estimated plus minus, and 538's Raptor and wins above replacement metrics, on top of having the highest single season peer or WS over 45. Like the numbers this dude is putting up are just so ridiculous. Like the MVP is him, Westbrook, or him, Curry, and Durant.
And watching him, you see that old school style of basketball. It gives a lot of the 90s vibes of pure perimeter, in your face. And again, I mean, he will literally, ask Marquise Morris what happens if you piss him off. He'll just push you down, run into them.
The Morris twins are fake tough guys.
Speaking of that, I know this is an old story, but the Jokic brothers and them starting beef, they just make up a Instagram called the Jokic brothers, has 50,000 followers, literally threatening them blatantly on social media like that. But hey, I guess that's how they do it. You guys just find that funny or anything?
I mean, it was a funny story. It was like a week of guys just like getting angry and fighting each other.
Yeah, but that wasn't even much. The couple fights that has signed Rudy Gobert and Miles Turner, that really wasn't. That was really nothing. But just see the passion in his back with these NBA games, and talking about passion, right? You have the Warriors not missing a beat. As they still wait for Klay Thompson, Curry, just being fucking amazing right now. Like you said, MVP candidate already. Andrew Wiggins really turning into his own, starting to become a legit star himself. And, having Steph Curry, having Kerr out there leading this team to much success, and they're one of the best teams in the West right now. How are we feeling about the Warriors, and how much is Klay Thompson going to contribute once he comes back?
Well, they have the luxury of working him back in. Like he doesn't have to play back-to-backs. He doesn't have to play the 3 and 4 nights or the 5 and 4, whatever they do. Like they can work him. Like they have the luxury of it. Their young guys are getting experience. They're also missing Wiseman, so they have the time to like get Klay back into peak Klay. Because look, the real question is how much can he defend? Like when you shoot the way he does, Like he can come in, and if he didn't have to guard anybody, he could probably run around circles and score 20 at least a couple games this season. And we'll probably have one or two. Like we're gonna have a Klay moment at least once this season, where he goes like 6 for 7 or 15 threes in a game or some stupid number like that he does all the time. This is a legitimate title contending team, and it was much faster and better than I thought they were.
Yeah, right. I think that's the I know, and I said that I really think the Warriors will win the West, but I thought like a lot of these teams is going to be something that grows into this legitimate team. But now they're, just adding up to the wins at this point. You feel the same way, Alex?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Steph looks back to MVP form. I think he's on a mission this year, back healthy and whatnot. Wiggins has been a huge contributor, 18-4 on the year. Draymond's been able to, get back to his old self, initiating the offense and really bolstering that defense down, down at the bottom of the paint. And like Bach said, when they get Wiseman back, and they get Klay back, I mean, they're going to be like unstoppable because you've gotten more production you could even imagine from, guys like, Damian Lee and Poole and Toscano Anderson. And that's just going to contribute to how fluid this offense is. It's going to force guys to come out of the paint, open things up even more to chase out them, to run up on them at the 3-point line. So this team, I expect to be there at the end of the year, in the Western Conference Finals. And I think a lot, including Vegas, had the same outcome for them as well. They look unbelievable. Kudos to Steve Kerr for turning this thing around in short order and being able to balance the minutes and, the time frame for these guys' development too.
Yeah, I mean, if we see the Warriors back in the finals after this quote unquote rebuild, it really be one of the most fascinating turnarounds in NBA history. It really will be. So,
well, the other thing is like they're recharged. Like part of the reason they didn't win a couple of years ago against Toronto was injuries, and that part of it could be chalked up to the fact that they played like an extra season in playoff games over that like 5-year stretch. So, having Klay be out for 2 years, having Steph basically took like a year and a half off.
Yep.
It recharges you. It like adds a year or two to your career. It's the same thing that like LeBron, like, let's be clear. The Lakers probably would not have won the bubble title if they didn't take 3 months off to recharge LeBron.
Yep.
Like having these guys having that time off makes a huge difference. And part of it is like Steve Kerr, I think, had to change how he played because he had the level of intelligence that he had during that peak teams with like Durant and stuff was just, they didn't have that. So you had to like figure out how to get some of these younger guys and let them understand things. And, Wiseman's a young guy. Like Wiseman would not be considered like a negative if he had gone third. Like if he had been able to play through his mistakes and stuff, but it's a different story when you're in like a Golden State team that has, winning aspirations. And especially in, it's a very read and react. You have to be a smart, high level guy to do it. That's why like all their subs were like Iguodala's and Sean Livingston. They were smart dudes and it was high level court. So I think that's a lot of the positives for that team.
Warriors coming out to play, especially in that basketball IQ. And talking about another West Coast team that has been really exciting people. Despite starting 1-3, this team has not lost since 9-game winning streak. The Phoenix Suns, amongst their owner being investigated for toxic works environments. The Suns not losing strides in this next year, really wanting to get back to that final spot for the West Coast. How do we feel about the Suns right now?
I honestly, they're one of the teams I picked to go to the finals. And my answer to that hasn't really changed. The part of it is similar to what happens with Washington. A lot of the league,
they'll stay this way.
Well, no, they're more likely to stay because a lot of the teams at the top this season in both conferences had like legitimate questions or are dealing with injuries in the case of the Bucks, where like Phoenix is essentially the same team. They just kind of swapped Sark for JaVale McGee. And so they have like legitimate reasons to be good because they're just rolling it back. And a lot, especially where like every other good team is either dealing with chemistry issues or injuries or everything else, it makes sense if you know who you are, you can be fine.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you know who you are, you can be fine. And beating really intimidating teams.
Up 20 going into the fourth on the Nets.
Man, that was a hot ticket too, but there should have been more buzz on that game. But yeah, like you were saying, Bach, I see this team, not missing a stride. I think it will be interesting to see where things will turn, momentum shift, amongst this investigation. I think that's something worth considering. But for now, winning cures all, and winning also creates distractions. And a team that's not winning, the Houston Rockets. Bach, I have a quote from you from our season preview. Don't worry, it's not incriminating or anything. And I did not change your influences. But you said this during our NBA preview.
I was watching Summer League. I watched like all the Rockets Summer Leagues. Holy shit, that team is going to be good in a couple of years.
Now,
that's a caveat. In a couple of years.
Yes, exactly. To be fair, you said a couple of years. I didn't influence it to change that. But, the team that is 1-14 right now, 1-13, who've lost their last 12 straight. Again, I don't know. The team's trying to figure it out.
They don't know who the point guard is. They don't know if it's Kevin Porter. They don't know if Kevin Porter Jr. can play point guard. They got some nice look. Jalen Green is going to be really good. That kid is going to be really good. Sengun, he's at the very least he's going to be serviceable. Yeah, I don't know what they have. Christopher. I mean, that's a nice swing. They got Yabusele, I believe, as well. They have some interesting pieces. They're going to be bad, but they're going to be fun bad, where it's like, oh, this team could be like good in the future. Like they're going to be bad, and they're going to be like arguing with Oklahoma City about like who's going to tank harder. But it's not because Oklahoma City is going to blatantly tank. Like Shea is not finishing this season playing all the games. They're going to sit him in like February. Houston is going to let up. They're just going to be bad because they're young. Like,
do you think this is? Oh, you're totally right. But do you feel like this is really, really bad, or it's just it is what it is?
They're bad because they're young. Like I don't know who's like really, really bad in this league. I don't know if there's teams that are like legitimately truly terrible.
I can tell you right now.
Huh?
I can tell you right now. Rockets, Pelicans.
The Pelicans. That's like a bad team, but that they have like hope. There's no teams that's like objectively like terrible where you can see that there's like nothing. Like there's some teams that aren't as good, but there's no like we're not talking like the early 2000s or the early 2010 Nets where it's like objectively hopeless.
Or
like,
early 2000s
bad
Knicks.
teams. They're
mid 2000s Knicks.
They're hopeless.
They're mostly just young. Like
it is.
Like even Orlando, which was considered like the number one shittiest team. Like Cole Anthony's balling.
They beat the Knicks at home.
Cole Anthony's balling. Franz Wagner's really good. Jalen's, Mo Bamba looks like an NBA player. Like they have some. Arjun Hampton grew 2 inches. I don't know if he's done anything, but
I would hope he looks like an NBA player.
Yeah, like they have something. Like there's no team that you look at as like, yeah, they're just objectively terrible, and they're just objectively terrible for like no good reason.
Hey, like you said, it's not been a couple years yet, so the prediction's still out there. But hey, time will tell with that. And I don't know. The Warriors were pretty awful at one point right before their resurgence. It happens. It's sports. And well, shouts to the loyal Rocket fans. I guess that's all I can say.
Yeah, you had your almost winning. You almost won an Eastern Conference Finals one time. I mean, look, as much as I think if you really ask them and be like, would you rather go back to the James Harden Rockets and watch how fucking boring that team was? Or would you rather like suck for a couple of years with this team? I think they'd kind of rather suck because it's certainly more entertaining. Like watching the Rockets with James Harden was kind of unbearable.
You know what was dangerous and abysmally bad and really painful to watch that was also entertaining? That was in the same state was the Astroworld Tour.
Oh. Oh, goodness.
It must be a Houston thing. I don't know.
Well, we definitely
Didn't
say
the
rest in
baseball team
peace.
just win the World Series?
They were in it and lost in 6 games against
good.
Atlanta.
They're
But
cheating.
definitely rest in peace to the victims of the Astro World disaster. But anyways, yes, Houston.
Houston's we have a problem.
Yeah,
the problem is they're like 3 years out.
Maybe 6.
Fair enough. We have the proof.
Look,
so
I'm pretty sure with there's a good chance that the Rockets make the playoffs probably before the Kings do. And I'm hesitant to say the Pelicans as well, but I don't know if Zion shows up again and they're kind of good.
Yeah, we'll see.
Even the worst teams are you can't say the Pistons are just awful. They're bad, but it's not because they're
Cade Cunningham's
they're
not
a poorly put together roster with shitty players. They're just kind of young.
No, they've been bad. That's why they're young.
Well, yeah, because they blew it up, and now they're learning. And apparently, Killian Hayes is terrible.
The last Houston related question for John Wall. So once he comes back healthy, is he definitely getting moved, or are they going to make him suffer too?
I think it varies because he still has a lot on his contract, so it depends on if they think they can find a partner or if they want to buy him out. Because John Wall would be a solid player for the Celtics.
Oh yeah.
Because it just depends. It depends on how desperate certain teams are. If somebody thinks that they can get a Chris Paul boost from getting John Wall and they have the cap space for it, it just depends on where who can look for it. Because there's only a handful of teams that can do this. Also, I hate to say this, but we didn't talk enough. This rookie class is really good. I didn't expect them to be Evan Mobley working in fucking Cleveland. What the hell?
Despite him being hurt right now,
lineup is so stupid that it works. It's just so frustrating.
Cade Cunningham has been exciting to watch.
Prepared.
Huh?
These kids are more prepared. I think the college game is elevated a little more, and I think they're more ready when they come out.
Yeah, these are much older and more mature players for sure.
I mean, they're all still freshmen.
Yeah. Yep.
But holy shit, the Mobley thing with the 3 bigs is it's kind of working, but it's weird. It's a weird team.
Quentin Grimes isn't for the Knicks, but that is for another day to worry about that. So my last related question before our way too early predictions. Now, when it comes to the West, it's very tight race. The Mavs, Nuggets, Jazz, Clippers, Lakers, Grizzlies, and Blazers are all within 1 or 2 games with each other. Again, we're recording this before Thanksgiving. We have a lot of NBA to go, but out of these teams that I mentioned, do you think any of them are worthwhile? Who's going to run away with it? Who's going to be falling? Whether it's the Mavs and Luka or the Nuggets and Jokic, the Jazz starting to fight with them.
Look,
what do you think about
I
the
think
remaining
teams that are most likely to fall off are Dallas. I don't like Jason Kidd as a head coach. I don't think he's a good head coach. Luka's taken a step back this year. I think empowering Porzingis is the wrong move. I think Porzingis is overrated.
Yeah, he's got to go.
They're more likely to step back. Memphis is probably likely to step back, but it depends on what they do with Jaren Jackson Jr. I mean, they got Dylan Brooks back, but that's fine. The Lakers, look, the issue with the Lakers is really just health. They'll figure it out if they're healthy. Denver will be in it. Utah is still going to be solid. They're not going to win the title, but they're still solid. I mean, Denver, really the ceiling for Denver will be the fuck is going on with Michael Porter Jr. He is old man back, and it's coming to bother him. And at some point he's going to have COVID issues because he's not vaccinated.
Yeah. And we've seen the players.
So God forbid they sneak into the finals and have to play the Nets. He can't show up in any of those games.
How about the Clippers without Kawhi still holding their roles? Is there anything to that, you think? Just who cares?
It doesn't matter. I have zero trust that Paul George could lead a team in the playoffs. He did it for 2.5 games.
Yeah. I think their ceiling is the Western Conference Finals, which they'll probably lose if they do make it that far.
They would have to get really lucky. They would have to play Dallas and Denver for that.
I know, and that's assuming that they get past Phoenix or Golden State as well to get there too, which I don't think they're going to.
Yeah.
So,
or they'd have to play Portland. Portland could drop off too because first of all, Dame's playing like shit, and secondly, he could be like, I'm out. Like they traded for they traded for Larry Nance Jr. They're not even playing. But their young guys are doing okay. They got some decent young guys.
For sure. And like you said, I think as the months go by, we'll have a better gauge of how things are going. But all in all, this first month of basketball has been really interesting. And as we wrap
There's
this
way
up,
more parity.
Yeah. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Like before this season started, it was kind of like, okay, Brooklyn's gonna win. Like that was the concern. It was probably Brooklyn was gonna win. And it was just like it kind of brought us back to like those Golden State years when they just won every year with KD. But like there certainly appears to be the teams that were closer. And maybe that's because of injuries and COVID stuff. But there seemed like at least the middle appears to be more exciting than it's been in a while.
Oh, especially, that middle. As I mentioned, those teams in the West all separated by 1 to 2 games. The East is pretty even for the most part. At least they have teams over 500 with all of them. I think it's going to just be a lot of fun to watch. And when we talk about way too early to predict NBA Finals again, I'm going to stick with what I said in the preview podcast with a Warriors-Nets Finals. Though as we're recording this, they're having a Finals preview right now, and Warriors are winning by 27 in the fourth quarter. So
that means nothing. They're like when they used to play the Cavs all year, like they would occasionally blow them out on Christmas. And
exactly,
it was like irrelevant.
It could it's just early season woes and stuff, But I'm still gonna stick with that Warriors and Nets Finals. What do you guys say? Are you gonna stick with your? I can't remember. I think Bucks and Suns, was that somebody said that?
I think that was probably
Lakers.
You said who?
I think I said rematch.
Okay. Bach with the Bucks and Suns. Do you still?
I still think the Bucks are going to make it. I just think I would switch my pick to the Warriors now.
Okay. What do you say, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, I had Lakers Bucks, I believe, at the beginning of the season, but I'm not ready to get off that because I think that the Bucks will still be there. But I'm actually ready to, assuming that Michael Porter Jr. gets his shit together, I'm ready to ascend and lift Denver into that conversation.
Perfect. I mean, they're going to be in the conversation next year.
Well, I think they'll be there this year too, and it just depends on the timetable for Jamal Murray too. I haven't.
Yeah, that's why definitely next year they're going to be like.
Yeah,
they're going to be at it.
Yeah,
but this year is this is going to be one of those years where it's like a weird it kind of like when the Raptors won. It's not inconceivable that a team that's not really the best kind of sneaks its way in and wins.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of turmoil with the top. It's technically feasible that Philly could win. Like if Embiid, they make it in the finals, Embiid decides, fuck you, I'm going 2001 Shaq on everybody for 2 straight months. It's not inconceivable that they could win.
Yeah, I just hope it doesn't happen that way. But like we all talked about, a lot of basketball to go, and we're going to enjoy each and every second of it. Is there something I missed? Anything else any of you guys want to add? No, we're all right. Cool. Well,
let the games continue.
Let the games continue. Alex, yes, I think that's a perfect way to sign off here. But again, don't forget to check out David Bach on Fresh Faces New Ideas on Twitch. Anything exciting coming up for the end of the year, Bach, with you?
No. I mean, maybe I'll if I get invited to panels and stuff, but I still do it. I shifted to doing later schedules. It's been working more. I'm gonna have to try to figure out a little bit how to change my stuff. I think I'm gonna start doing a little bit more debate review because politics is kind of getting a little dull for this month. I mean, there'll be stuff next week as we try to figure out how to not crash the economy more. But
then definitely we'll follow you the way through. Again, check out Fresh Faces New Ideas on Twitch. Check out Fresh Faces New Ideas on Twitch. And Alex with the Going Places Artists Collective. Don't forget to check him out over there. Any updates regarding that or anything you do? By the way, you have to check out his portraits of Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Gwen Stefani of No Doubt and her solo career.
Yes. So we're continuing our partnership with Max Deli. We're going to be having artists in there all the way through the new year. And then we have our first show since COVID shut everything down next year at ART Studios, a tattoo shop that we're collaborating with in Hartford. We'll keep you updated on news with that.
All right. Well, looking forward to it. All right, guys. I'll see you all. We'll check in next month. We'll see if our predictions are holding up or we have some new things to pivot and talk about. But until then, that's David Bach, Alex Ranniello. Thank you so much, gentlemen. And I'll see you very, very soon.
Take care, gentlemen.
Let the games begin or continue. Peace out.
Peace.